Good morning. Shabbat Shalom, Hebrew Israelite family. Good morning to all of you, wherever you are. May the Most High Spirit of peace come upon you on the day of his peace and rest that he has authorized for his people. Glory and honor to the Heavenly Father, who has created the heavens and the earth and created the 24-hour space of Shabbat for the rest given to his people, and also to Messiah Yahushua, who is the high priest, the prophet, and the soon returning king of planet Earth. Glory and honor to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and to his son, Messiah, Yahushua. Greetings to the 12 awakening tribes of the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name was changed to Yashar'ah. Greetings to the Gentile souls come from the world of the Gentiles into the righteousness of the Father by acknowledgement of the truth and repentance in the name of the Messiah to the Father. Glory and honor to the Father. Greetings to the Gentiles. Greetings to the chat. Brother Stephen Kelly, Castle King, relaxing your mind. Sister Love Blue, Yafi, Brother Amon Prakash, Brother David Harry, Gary Joseph, Brother Baldy Thorpe, Brother Superstar, Sister Psalm 119, Sister Isha Shama, Josephine, and Frankie, Sister Margaret Edwards, and Sister Wade, and Sister Wade, and Brother Wade, and Sister Wade's daughter, and Sister Wade's granddaughter, and her mother, Yvette. I remember y'all. I can't always remember, but I remember y'all. Praise the Most High. So glory and honor to the Father. Greetings to all of you. And Sister Daniels, greetings to all of you. Praise the Most High. Shalom to all of your family. Today we're going to continue our study in the book of Deuteronomy. Very important data, very important teachings in Deuteronomy chapter 14. Two main aspects. One is what we're calling Yhwh'S message of health and the truth about tithing. I often go into these subjects, oftentimes in many studies. And the reason is I don't think I am exaggerating when I say, in general, health or the good health is a problem in the earth today. That there's a lot of people suffering from poor health today. And this is especially true among the Hebrews. We are suffering from poor health today. Part of that is part of the curse that was placed upon us for disobedience to the Father. Part of that curse is us living among our enemies and being fed the food given to us by our enemies. Okay, so the Most High has shown us the way out of this. Also, of course, Sister Castro, welcome. As long as Brother Akawan Banya, as long as there are the means of exchange of goods and services, let me put it that way. As long as the means of exchange of good and services is money, and there are always going to be greedy people on the earth. And among those greedy ones, they're looking to separate people from their money. That's always the case. Okay, that is always the case. So when we're talking about tithing, there are many greedy people that convince other people to give them their money for greed's sake. Okay, for greed's sake. And over the course of time for myself, I have been in several situations. As Paul said, have learned to be abased and learn to abound. So I've been on different sides of the economic spectrum and in different situations. And I have seen for myself the corruption and also the blessing when tithing is done properly. Haven't seen it a lot, but I have been blessed to see it. I remember when I was in an Adventist church, I worked in what was called the Community Services Department. They have departments for everything in these Christian churches. So what we used to do is we used to get funds from people in the church, members of the church that would donate funds to community services. And then we would take that money and we would go to they had these places that you can get food that was donated by corporations, and you can get it at a greatly reduced price. Food share is what it was called. It was a food share program. This is when I was in Connecticut. And we would get food from the food share, canned goods, meats, cereals, anything they had. And we would keep it. We had a room for community services, and we would keep the food stacked up in the room. And every month, as you got close to the end of the month, the Sabbath, that was the closest to the end of the month, I would say, but sometimes during the week too. There was a door that led directly outside the church. There was a door to the community service department from inside the church, but there was a door that led directly to the outside of the church. And at that door from the outside of the church, you could always tell them it was the end of the month. In other words, right before people would get their Social Security checks, there'd be long lines of elderly people outside that door. And that's when I felt the best about what I was doing at that church, because that to me was the real work that should have been done, not a building fund or, you know. And I remember when my wife and I first came up from New York City, we moved to the Hartford, Connecticut area, and we were in a church, and that particular church was across the street from one of the most notorious projects in Hartford. And I remember that we started off in that church. We might have had about 60 members in that church. And the conference of the SDAs brought us a pastor, and the pastor stated his purpose and aim. The only reason he was there was to build a new building. And they had a big building fund, and almost every other week he was preaching out of Nehemiah about building a wall and attributing that to building a new building for the church. And I learned a lot at that time. I thought it was a natural fit, if I was in the truth, that project across the street should have been a target of whatever we could do to help, right? And so I was new to the area. We had just come up from New York, and I would walk from the church right across the street and just walk through the projects and observe what was the situation, what was the lifestyle, what was the activities going on in the projects. And of course, I saw what you would expect to see in some projects. You know, there was dog feces in the hallways, there was graffiti all in the projects, there was fights, there were drug deals. You know, it was crack era, so there was a lot of drug dealing going on in there. And I noticed all of that, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew something needed to be done. Okay, it was obvious something needed to be done. So what I did is I came back to the pastor after going over. He one day asked me, "I noticed you leave after Sabbath school and go across the street." I said, "I wanted to see what was going on in them projects. I wanted to see what the possible needs was, what the situation, and then I wanted to know what I could do to help." It was obvious those people were poor. Okay, these were projects; they were poor. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, "That's nice, brother." He said, "But those people," this is a Hebrew bloodline man telling me, "those people," he said, "do not have the economic base to help us build our church." That's what he told me. And at that particular moment, he lost me. And for, I would say, 20 more years, I stayed in that denomination, but I felt like leaving right there. Honestly, I felt like walking away and never coming back. I couldn't believe those words came out of his mouth, that the reason he would not spend time in those projects is because they did not have money to build his building. And I never forgot that. Never forgot it. Of course, that was 1988. About, I would say, 5 years later, I met a young boy that was going to become a very wealthy NBA player. At that time, everybody was interested in my connection with him because of his money. And I was disgusted at the whole thing, honestly. Disgusted at the whole thing. And so that's when I started slowly. The Most High was awakening me to deliver me from Christianity eventually, but definitely from those type of churches. Now, they had this theory. I remember they wanted to build a church, a bigger church than we really could afford, because they said if you build it big, people will come. That was the premise. And I thought that was strange. I thought that was like, because I have been in situations many times where I bit off more than I could economically chew, and it always bit me in the behind. So I didn't understand. I was like, why would you want to build a big giant church and we only have 60 to 100 members? And he said, don't worry, build it big and they'll come. Now, during this time, as we started actually they were putting all their prayers, their money, their efforts into building, first buying the land, and we spent a lot of money on architecture and all kind of permits and everything we needed. At the same time, there was this Sunday group of Christians up the street, and they were building a church that was literally the size of a football stadium. It was just a little smaller than a football stadium, just a little small. If you're in New York and you ever seen Madison Square Garden, or you ever seen the Nassau Coliseum out in Uniondale, it was approaching that. And I remember they built that church, and they finished building theirs before we built ours. And when they finished, they had the opening of the church. It was a couple of years it took. It was packed. It was packed. And I was surprised. And then the same thing happened. We went from 60 to 100 members to like 300-400 members as soon as we opened it. And my thought process was, and I met with some brothers, we got together on it because I wanted to discuss this. I said, okay, so we got now overflow at our new building. We got overflow. So I said, what we should do is probably start a smaller group in another area of the city. I thought, okay, so if we got 300 people coming here, let's say we start a small group with 20 or 30 people, and then we start several small groups. In my mind, I thought the word would get spread more efficiently if we had a whole bunch of small groups, because what was going on is people wanted to be part of the crowd. And the guy was right. Build it big, they'll come. I was shocked at that. I was really surprised at that. And the affiliation with a large group was the pride. I'm going to so-and-so church. I go to Bethel AME, and everybody knew Bethel AME was the giant church. Oh, that's the biggest church on the block. Yup. It wasn't nothing to do with the word. It was nothing to do with truth. It was nothing to do with the Most High or the Messiah. It was about pride of being part of a big organization. And so when that happened, I was like, man, I was totally turned off by the whole thing. But I stayed with it. It was many years. Like I said, it took 20 years for me to wake up. It took 20 years. And the whole time, my wife will tell you, Sister Daniels will tell you, they called me a troublemaker because I hated what I was seeing, and I would speak about it. I would get mad, and they would say, this brother's always starting trouble with the pastors. I said, because your pastors are all crooks. And they would get mad at me. But I would say it. And I was like, nobody else is standing. I would stand in front of the church, and I said, this church ain't no good. This is garbage. I said, you know what? I said, this the Most High gonna burn this place down. And they would get mad. And I was so frustrated because my spirit I felt I was being stifled by being in this organization that in my own conviction was crooked and corrupt. See, so my best joy was the days when we could give out the food. People would come and they didn't have money to buy food. They were waiting for their next Social Security or disability. A lot of people on SSI and Social Security, they're waiting for that. And so there was never enough Social Security never enough money to meet the month, right? We talk about meeting our ends. What that means is we have enough money to meet the month, to pay our bills, our rent, our electric, our cable, whatever, and have food. That's when you have enough money to meet those obligations, you have enough money to meet your month. But these people didn't have enough money to meet their month. And so what ended up happening is they couldn't get food. So they would be at our door. And I was so glad to be there to help them. Even myself, many times, I would look at my bills and I ain't have enough money for the month. And I would go and there was sister there, Sister Johnson. I call up, Sister Johnson needs some food. I meet me at the church and we take what we need and go. Just take it. And brethren, that's what the tithe is supposed to be for. That's what it's supposed to be for. Like in other words, if you don't have enough money to meet your month and you need food, and that's what it came down to. We have it. And then we have younger couples, younger people come that had babies and needed diapers. We had it. Okay, we had the diapers. And so that's what the tithe is supposed to be for. It's not supposed to be build some big building and hope you get a lot more people coming. That's not what it's for. Okay, it's not for a group of people to be proud about how big their building is. That's not what it's for. Okay, it's supposed to be for people that can't buy food. I remember there were many times, man, many times we would get electric bills, and y'all heard it before, like you get the electric bill and it's $100-something and you ain't got it. You be like, okay, I'm gonna wait till next month. Next month come, you get a bill, now it's double, right? It's $200-something. You be like, I ain't got it this month. Then the third month come, now you're talking $300 and $400. You call them, you say, listen, can I make arrangements? Because you ain't got it. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got it. It's like, no, I ain't got it. So then I remember there was this big community. It was, I forgot what it was called, a congregational. It was the biggest building in the town. We lived in Manchester, Connecticut at the time. There was this big white congregational church. And I heard, I don't know where I heard, it was on the grapevine somewhere, that they helped people with their utility bills. Man, I went up there, I had a $500 utility bill. And I walked in there and they set aside, their church set aside money for that. And man, when they paid that bill, I was like, man, it was utility and water. I was like, yeah. And I felt like I was supposed to go get it and they were supposed to give it to me. I was thankful, but that's what the money's supposed to be for. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be for. The thing is, the problem is, it sounds good to create, a fund for people that need to pay their, their utilities or needs food or diapers. It sounds good, but the problem is that you got greedy people, man. That's the problem. You set aside. I knew a pastor. They had set aside money from his ministry for that, and one day, all the money was gone, and he was gone. $280,000. I had a friend of mine. I grew up with him. Me and him was homies. I mean, we was part of the Ace Boom, man. And he grew up. He had got on crack, and his mother, they were Pentecostal, and his mother prayed for him. And one night they talked about miraculously, he came home, he saw his mother praying, and he was going to kill his mother. And she turned and she called elders, and they came that night at 3 a.m. and prayed with the brother. And he was delivered from the crack that night. So then he decided he wanted to become a pastor, and they put monies together and they bought land in our same neighborhood that we grew up in, and they built a church. And then some years later, like I said, me and him was ace spoons. Like we grew up together from kindergarten. I said, you seen James? I said, no, I ain't seen James in years. They said, you know why? I said, nobody's seen him. All the money from that church he built is gone, and he's gone. And so I said, get out of here, man. Yup. So that's what I'm saying. You get people that'll rip you off and ruin the whole thing. You understand? It's a good situation, but at the same time, there's so much greed in religion, right? There's so much greed in religion, especially in Christianity. There is so much greed in Christianity, man. I mean, And so you don't know. You be trying to put something together nice, and then all of a sudden it's gone because somebody's greedy. Okay, somebody that you trusted takes the money. Comes down to that. Always comes down to that. Okay, somebody you trusted, like Judas, steals the money. Okay, but in the economy of our fathers of ancient Israel, the center of help for the poor was Jerusalem. And in fact, let's take a look at that. That's in, and this is I used to hear this every week for literally decades in the SDA church. They quote when they pull out them plates, when they pull out them velvet covered plates for them envelopes they looking for. They used to quote this all the time, all the time. This is Malachi chapter 3. Malachi chapter 3, beginning at verse 8 and going down to verse 10. Malachi chapter 3, beginning at verse 8 and going down to verse 10. The question is asked, will a man rob the Most High? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now herewith, saith Yahweh of hosts, if I will not open to you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. I don't know if any church that you ever went to would repeat this, but this was a mantra. This was a mantra. And this is the thing about it. They used to have us thinking that our Christian church that we were in was the storehouse. And if we didn't return tithes and offerings to that Christian church, we were robbing the Most High. I don't know if they did that to you, but that was the brainwashing. That was the brainwashing. Okay, that was the brainwashing. So the church, our building, our congregation is the storehouse. And if you don't return your tithes and offerings to this congregation, you're robbing the Most High. And you're going to curse. But if you return your tenth, he'll bless the 9 tenths more than your tenth. And then they get people giving testimony. I needed my electric bill paid, and I gave the tithe, and the God blessed me, and I got my money. We got brainwashed. Now, the storehouse, the real storehouse, was Jerusalem. That's the real storehouse. And he said that there may be food in my house. Why? Because when the poor come looking for something, it's there. They ain't got to make a special collection. It's there. It's sitting in there. You know what I mean? It's sitting in there. And yes, Reverend Ike all over in. That's right. And you know what it is, brethren? The Bible tells us we are drawn into sin and enticed. Okay, we are drawn into sin and enticed. What does that mean? That means the devil utilizes what things you desire to entice you. Everybody wants to be rich. Tell me I'm wrong. Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to be a part of something big, famous, rich. They want to rub shoulders like that. Everybody does. And he draws that to get you suckered by religion. See, he does. So once you awaken to this, then you see the game. And what happened, like I said, I got to a point, I was such a rebellious one in the Adventist church. Like I said, witnesses will tell you, they put my name out in conferences from northern New England and Maine all the way down to North Carolina, New York, Pennsylvania, places I'd never been. They put my name out there because they said, this guy, don't let him in your church. He starts trouble. You know why? Because I wouldn't put up with the BS. When I saw it, I said it. I wouldn't put up with it. And the only reason I stayed there was because my grandmother my great-grandfather, they were part of that church. That's the only reason I was there. And they kept the Shabbat. That's why I stayed. But I was feeling a tug until that one day, that white man, that president of the Northern New England Conference, looked me in the eye and said, you keep teaching these things. We're going to have to part ways with you. And that's when the spirit hit me and said, you're looking in front of you. I saw 3 white men. He said, you're looking at 3 lost men. And at that moment, I said, you know what I got to do? I got to study the Bible. I had already, at that time, had started reading the Bible through. I had already read it 2 or 3 times by then. Okay, maybe 4. But I realized, and I had to ask myself, the spirit really was convicting me. And I had to ask myself this question hard. What do you believe? Really, what do you believe and why? And I had to go through the word by myself. That's why I tell y'all to do. And I had to make a decision. It was like a decision I made when I told the Most High to pick my wife for me. And I didn't care even if it was a white woman, if it was a fat woman, if it was a skinny woman. As long as I knew who picked her, I would take her. And it was a scary thought. It was scary as all. I ain't lying. It was scary as all. I said, man, this is scary. I said, but if I know he picked her, I'll take her. I don't care what color she is. I don't care where she come from. I don't care what she looked like. If he picked her, if he guarantees me he picked her, I'll take her. And the same thing, I had to come. I said, you know what? I got to find out what the Bible says. And whatever the Bible says, I'm following. If the church says this, if Ellen White says that, and the Bible is different, I ain't having it. That was scary because, like I said, they had my mind, man. They had me. And it wasn't just me. They had my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. They had us going back. Had us. And my family was on that Jamaican side. Y'all know West Indians don't, you want to talk about some stubborn Hebrews? They wasn't having it. You couldn't leave. So I had to read the word. And that year, I started reading. Definitely, like that was around 05. I had already read it 2 or 3 times myself, but that year it took on special meaning. No, that was 06, 07. That took on special meaning because now I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out, what do you believe? Really? What do you believe? And I started seeing stuff. That's when I started awakening and I started seeing stuff. I said, wait a minute, chains in your enemy's land, the tail and not the head, diseased, poor, in one of all things. I said, no, man, that's us. That's us. That's when I started awakening. See? Yep. And I said, oh, so then the Adventists used this term, a couple of terms, one like this. Sister White says, and I would say, the Bible doesn't say. And then when they see me separated, people that knew me for years, I have an uncle. My uncle was the president of West Indies Union College. My aunt, my cousin, was a professor there. Her husband became the president. He calls me. What is your problem with the church, man? I said, Uncle, my problem with the church is they're separating from the Bible, and I'm clinging to the Bible. And he kept asking me questions, and I kept giving him Bible. And after a while, he said, okay, man, you know your Bible. I said, you should too. I said, you should too. I said, I'm going to cling with the Bible. I'm going to be all right. He said, your mother, your aunts are very worried about you. I said, listen, how could they be worried about me if I'm committed to God's word? No, I'm not committed to your organization. I'm not committed to Ellen White. I'm committed to the word. He said, well, I can't say anything. I said, no, you can't, Uncle. I said, only I can say is that, like Paul, I wish you were all together like me, committed to the word. That's all I can say. But then the Most High started showing me, okay, This is what you believe, and this is why. That's when 2 or 3 witnesses became life-saving. 2 or 3 witnesses became life-saving, brethren. Because they would come at me with this. Ellen White said this. I said, give me 2 or 3 witnesses from the word for that. Then I studied tithing. Oh my gosh. It changed everything. And times in my past, like when I would go to that church, get my electric bill paid, or I would be in the community services and giving out food, and the feeling I got and the satisfaction I had. And I remember one day I was convicted, brethren. I had got paid. The church, when I was in New York, the church I went to was on 123rd Street and Lenox Avenue. I would get off at 125th and walk back a block and a half to the church. One particular day, I don't know, I was feeling something, and I got off the train at 125th Street. And of course, there were always people begging. You know, this was back in the 80s. Crack was out. There was always people begging on 125th Street, up and down, right? Y'all, if you're from New York, you know what I'm talking about. And so this one man walked up to me, brother, you know, can you help, man? I just need a couple of dollars to get something to eat. We happened to be standing in front of a chicken place. And I had my tithe money in my pocket. So I said, what you need money for? You gonna get a pint? He said, nah, I want something to eat. I said, you like chicken? He said, yeah. I said, let's go. He said, what can I get? I said, whatever you want. I forgot what he ordered, but I paid for it. And I felt so good paying for that. Then I walked in there and I gave the rest of the money in the plate. And I did not feel good about that. And then I told a brother what I did. He said, oh, you shouldn't do that. Ellen White said you should not spend the tithe like that. And so I didn't do it again. But that day, I felt so good because that money fed that brother. Okay, that money. And I said, damn. That's what this is about. It is not about some church getting money. It is not about a new building. It's about street level real. One of the things I have learned in my sojourn is what it means, what it really means to be real. And the more I get into the truth, I have very little patience for front. I got very little patience for it. The more you get into the truth, the meat of it, I get some people say on my next channel, you so rude, yeah, because I can't stand people that front. Yeah, I did it before too, but I'm trying to tell y'all, you're going to come correct, come real. If you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say nothing. Yep. So what do you believe? So I said, okay. When I looked up tithe and I saw Jacob was the brother that got me. It was Jacob. Our father, Jacob, whose name was changed to Yashar, he got me. I'm looking at Jacob. This is Genesis. Moses, we just went to Malachi. Moses witnessed in Genesis. Genesis chapter 28. This is what got me, man. Along with Deuteronomy, because Deuteronomy got me because I understood early on that Deuteronomy was right before our fathers went into the land. And Jacob was the father of the nation, right? Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So Jacob became the father of Israel. So all of us as Jacob's descendants are children of Israel. That's where you get it from. That is why it's an affront to us for the Amalekites to call themselves Israel, because they're not children of Jacob, nor do they acknowledge our Mashiach or our Heavenly Father. They got their own God in their own books. It's a front, and it bothers me. But I here's the patience of the saints, right? Here's the patience of the saints. But Jacob got this was Genesis chapter 28, and again, what am I doing? I'm reading the word and praying and asking the Father, what do I believe? What do I believe? Why? Why do I believe whatever I believe? Why? What do I believe? Where am I getting this? So that's when things started looking different. Okay. Genesis 28. I'm going to begin at verse 11. I'm going to begin at verse 10. I'm going to begin at verse 10 of Genesis 28. I want to get the whole picture that it outlines. So Genesis 28, beginning at verse 10. And I'm going to read from verse 10 down to, I'm going to read all to the end, but let me read in sections. So from 10 to verse 14. This is Jacob before his name was changed. This is even before he was converted. He was converted when he wrestled with Messiah that day. So this is Jacob before he was even converted. Okay. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. Behold, the angels of Yahweh ascending and descending on it. And behold, Yahweh stood above it and said, I am Yahweh, most high of Abraham, thy father, and the most high of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. First of all, brethren, the ladder, I didn't get it at first, but then I got it. Messiah said, you shall see the Son of Man, angels ascending and descending upon him, because the ladder represented Messiah. Messiah was the connection that brought the Father and us together. Messiah is the connection. And then we can see that in the book of Revelation in chapter 1, right? The revelation of Jesus Christ, which Yahweh gave unto him to give unto his servants things which must sort to come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. Angels ascending and descending on the ladder are coming between the Father and us by the Messiah. That's right, the conduit. So the ladder was the conduit between heaven and earth. It is the way messages come from the throne room of the Father to us. And it comes through Messiah. So the ladder that he saw represented Messiah. Imagine that. Here's Jacob in the Old Testament, and he's seeing Messiah. And he sees the Father at the top of the ladder, and the angels coming down. And the message is coming from the Father through the Messiah to us. Again, why? Why through the Messiah? Because we are sinners. We are lost in sin. We cannot change the fact that we are born sinners. But the Father sends righteousness because of the Father sends his Son. And through his Son, we get perfection of righteousness. We get atonement for the sin. We also, look, he says about us, he says, and thy seed, that's you and me, brother. Thy seed, that's us. He said, thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, to the south. To thee and to thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Yes, brethren, they could either use us as pawns in their Babylonian system to get a blessing, or they can follow our God and get a greater blessing. They get the first one. They use us to pick their tobacco and their cotton. They use us to enrich themselves. They use us to get rich in their banks as we get in debt. They use us to get sick with the stuff they give us to eat. They calling it food, and it's not. And we got to buy their drugs, they say, otherwise we will not get better. And we still don't get better, but they get richer because we're buying their drugs. They can use us that way, and they are. They better enjoy it now, because it's almost over. It's almost over. Praise the Most High. The time is up. Okay. Game is rigged and the game is up. Okay. It's been peeped. We can see what's up now. We can see it. Verse 15. And behold, I am with thee and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep and said, surely Yahweh is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? There is none other but the house of Yahweh, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. And he called the name of that place Beth-al. But the name of that city was called Luz at first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if Yahweh will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall Yahweh be my God. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Yahweh's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. That's what it got me. I said, wait a minute. Jacob was promised the land. He wasn't promised the land to be purchased with a bank loan. So there was no debt on the land. The food and the raiment that Jacob obtained were from sheep and goats and cattle that he owned. That was his. They grazed on land that he owned. That was his. There was no debt on it. There was no weekly paycheck either. So I thought, when the pastors told me that not only should I return tithe, I should look at the gross amount before the government takes his check and give God his first, they lied to me. They bamboozled me. I realized I had been hoodwinked. I realized that the whole Christian religion hoodwinked me. Not just me, all of us. That's the truth. It's a front. Oh, they do some good, like the community services. But the community services, even in our church, was back behind everything else in the church. Especially when they wanted to expand it. That was the sickest thing. You got people hanging off the rack, and you want to just expand the building, make it bigger. And you got people lining up before the end of every month at the side looking for food. The thing that really got me, though, was how deep the brainwashing was. Even myself, like I said, I had to pray and be serious. And it was a scary prayer because I knew it might end up in me leaving that organization. Honestly, I did not know I would leave Christianity altogether. I did not know that at the moment. I did not know that. But then as time went on, and the more I read, and the more I studied, and the more I prayed, the more I was convicted. This ain't you. This ain't you. This ain't you. Then it all started making sense. Everything started becoming clearer. As you all see, when you read the word, things start to become clearer. Okay, start to become clearer. And then I understood that everything they taught me was angled at white Jesus. See, they come after and say, why are you always talking about color? That's their own conviction because they know they got drugged. You know what? Karma is real. Karma is real. And she's a mean witch when she come back on you. Karma. And they know it's coming. So they come at you. Why are you always talking about color? What it is they've been exposed. That's what it is. The word of the Father exposes them. It exposes them. And I'm looking at Jacob and I'm like, so he didn't have no debt. He had money. He had cattle. He had sheep and goats. He had land. He didn't have no debt. So when he returned tithe, it was on his increase. And I realized I have never really returned tithe at that time because I was always in debt. I was always behind. I was always where my money did not meet my month. And I was being ripped off. Ripped off. And I said, daggone, man. I said, daggone. I realized this is all a front. Now, honestly, I can't even walk into a Christian church. I don't feel comfortable. I had to do it one time. My daughter took piano lessons from this nice lady. She gave piano lessons. And then when we couldn't even afford to pay her, she insisted on teaching my daughter for free. So one day she asked us, I want Jessica to play in front of the church. And I want you to, I did not want to come, but I can't because this lady was nice to us. So I came. But man, I felt no. I went, I listened to my daughter play, and I thought, I ain't coming back for no reason. No. It's like you used to tasting good food, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody give you some frozen microwave mess, and you could see this ain't it, man. This ain't the grub. This ain't the grub. And it's all these children of your fed. And then some of us, or most of all of them, and they were worshiping their God, white Jesus, and calling it love. That ain't it. It's like you get something good, right? And then you taste in the real. It's like, I could taste the difference between organic meat and non-organic meat. My wife said she smells the difference. She said, you making organic beef here. She said it smells different than the other one. I said, you're right. It does smell different. It does. I ain't gonna front. And I'm used to organic meat, and I'm sitting in there and they feeding me. It ain't working. It ain't working. And then they tried to go into the word. It was like watching somebody ruin a work of art. It's like, what are you talking about, man? It wasn't my church, because I have stood up when I was in the SDA church. I have stood up and told people, just sit down, take your ass out the pulpit, because you ain't no pastor. Sit down. People be grabbing on me, brother, calm down. If that's a holy pulpit, he just messed it up. Coming with that mess. See, once you getting real, you can't go back to fake. You understand? Once you getting real, fake ain't gonna cover it, man. You mean? It ain't. And I know, listen, time is short. And we don't have none to waste. We just don't have it to waste. My problem is I'm too cynical with that mess. When I see it, I'll be like, no, I can't. I ain't got time for that. For what? Listen to you for what? Exactly. It's exactly right. I'm listening to some dude try to explain. The title of the video was really happened to Malcolm X. So I'm listening to this bow tie fool talking about, the messenger really loved Malcolm X. Oh, did he? Oh, Rick. Did it? The nation would have been built up if they didn't kill Malcolm X. We would have brought him back in. I don't think Malcolm was headed back. I don't think so. You know, and I said, man, I came in here. I had to get rid of it. Then I went into my history, got rid of it. I said, I don't want to see nothing else about this, man. I don't want to see nothing about that. Once you get real, you can't go back to being fake. It just doesn't taste right no more. You know what I mean? It just don't. It don't work right. Once you get real, you can't have the fake no more. You know? So, yeah, I started understanding what tithe was really for. But at the same time, I understand real enough, as much as I would love to, I would love to organize and put together some situation. Sister, every place we went, Sister Daniels would always start what she called the Dorcas Society. What is a Dorcas Society? We would gather clothes. We would get clothes from Goodwills and secondhand stores and shops like that. And we would have clothes. We would clean them, iron them. And if somebody needed clothes, we would have clothes, as long as they could find something that fit, right? And she called it Dorcas Society. We would love to have, organized Dorcas Society, but there's too much greed. Too much greed, man. Somebody's going to steal something. It's as simple as that. So I say, if you individually are convicted and you want to help somebody, pray and let the Father show you. There's always somebody around that can't pay the electric bill. Brethren, there's always somebody that can't pay electric bill. How many single mothers out here too struggling, to provide for their children? There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, especially among the Hebrews. There's a lot of that. So pray. I mean, there's so much. You don't have enough money to help everybody, right? So you got to ask the Father, where should this be directed? And let him show you where it should be directed, right? And he will. Because you can't help everybody. Being real about it, you can't help everybody. You wish you could, but you can't. So there's people, Messiah walked into that open place in the feast, and he has a lot of people there. But he had this one man that he helped, right? He had one man. He would like to have healed everybody, but there was one man that the Most High Father chose. Go heal that man. And he did. Well, brethren, pray to the Father. Who is the widow? Who is the poor? That's easy, brethren. Listen, this country, the United States of America, and the world system is run based on two things: slave labor and debt. That's what it's run on. When we so-called got freedom with the Emancipation Proclamation, they immediately put us in debt. How did they do it? They said, you can be sharecroppers. Now, you ain't got money, so we'll let you use the land. Knowing they couldn't farm the land anyway. We knew what we were doing. We let you farm the land, but then you owe us. And they put us in debt. And ever since they took the chains off our neck, they add the debt chains to us, and they've been on us ever since. The debt chain. And then we start. You need education. Okay, we get education. Now you got to take out loans. We'll let you get the loans, get the education, but then you don't get paid what you thought you was going to get paid, and you still owe money for the education. It's been based on slave labor and debt. The entire system. Now you can see even the children of Yhwh are complaining about the deficit, aren't they? You almost hear every other day, the United States deficit, the deficit. We got to cut. And the thing they want to cut all the time is things to help the poor. That's what they call wasteful spending. Things to help the poor. Brethren, I'm so looking forward to when the Father come and destroy this whole system of hypocrisy. Just destroy the whole thing. I can't wait. He's going to destroy the whole system of hypocrisy. Because that's what it is. It's ridiculous. They're talking about deficits, and they sitting up in there in the Senate. There's 100 millionaires. Literally, in the Senate of the United States, there's 100 millionaires. And they get free health care. And they're millionaires. And they're talking about wasteful spending on people that are poor. Do you realize in the United States of America, there is 100 million households. Households, not talking about people. There's 100 million households. Most households have 3 people in it. You got about 300 million people in the United States. You got about 100 million households. Do you realize that about 20 million of those households live below their poverty line? Like, they definitely don't have enough means to meet their month, at least 20 million. And you got people in the U.S. Senate. We're not even talking about the billionaires that run corporations. Just talking about the 100 dudes and women in the U.S. Senate got more money than all them 20 million. They gave a little bit. We could eradicate poverty in the United States. But they ain't going to do that. And you got pastors, millionaire pastors with private jets. It's obscene. It really is. And it's not going to change. As long as you got greed in the world, this situation is going to exist. Okay? I'm praying to the Most High. That's why I pray. You know what? I seriously do. I get on my knees and I say, Father, if I'm wrong about the timeline, please show me, because I'll admit it to the world if I was wrong about 2027, if I'm wrong about 2032. But if you don't show me, I'm going to keep preaching it, because I can't wait for this stuff to end. For them to be raping and trafficking little girls and little boys and getting their jollies off. For all of these Hebrew men wearing dresses and talking about we have a right to identify how we want to. No, I can't wait for it to be destroyed. All of these fake preachers, these fake teachers, these fake banks, all of it to destroy us. Brethren, you realize the whole thing is geared for our destruction. Our Hebrew destruction. I know people looking at this and say, well, there he goes, black head. Hell yeah, I am. The whole thing is geared for the Hebrew destruction, because the devil knows who we are. Yeah, he knows who we are. But he also knows his time is short. And we know it now. We know it now. Their time is short. It's almost over. And I rejoice every day, praise Father, for the promise of destroying this whole system and all the hypocrites with it. Oh, yes. Praise the Most High. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I have no apologies for that. None. Zero. And so we're praising the Most High. That's why we go into this subject in a lot of times during the course of a year, because they're big subjects. Health and money. We go into this subject several times a year, because these two subjects draw us down, brethren. They're designed to destroy us. Health and money. And when you're talking about money, you're talking about debt. They love to keep us in debt. Love that. Because as long as you are in debt, they control you. As long as you're in debt. And all of us would love to get out of debt. But hell, you know and I know you ain't got enough money to meet your month. So what ends up happening? You end up going in debt. You want a new car? You need a car to get to work, right? So what are you going to do? You go down to some dealership and what they going to tell you? We're going to put you in a car. We're going to put you in a car. Okay. All you're going to pay is for 84 months, $600 a month. Am I lying to you? You want to buy a house? The American dream is to buy a house. Isn't it? You have home ownership. Even if the bank really owns the house, you own the equity in the house. So they'll tell you, you need to get a house, right? And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But what are they doing? They're putting you in debt. And what they done brought into Florida, this is what they did. They done brought it to a new level now. Because the bank finances your house. The bank wants to make sure that they keep your house, especially if you don't pay. So what they do is they collect the property taxes out of your monthly payment. Okay. Now, even if you have a fixed rate on your mortgage, so if you're paying, I'm going to use it, you're paying $1,000 a month. Let's just use that number. But your property taxes go up. So now you ain't paying $1,000 a month no more, because if your property taxes go up and your bank has to collect the property taxes on your behalf, they're going to charge you. Okay, that's that. Now, they also demand that your house be insured, because if some disaster comes, fire, hurricane, tornado, and destroys your house, they might lose their investment. So you must have the house insured. But if the insurance companies are saying, listen, it's costing us more to make money, so we're going to have to raise your insurance rates. So now your payment goes up again, because now you got to pay for the insurance and you got to pay for the taxes. You could pay your house off, but if you don't pay the taxes, that county is taking that property. Okay, taking it. And there are vultures. My wife and I call them vultures. There are vultures out there that cruise around. They go to different town halls and they're looking to see who's behind on their property taxes. And they sometimes could buy the house for what the value of the taxes are and take an old person's house. They've done it many times. There are people that make their whole living. The Lord blessed us. Why? Because they throwing old people out their houses. That's in Babylon. That's what's called a blessing in Babylon. When you can throw an old person, you can get their house for what they owe on taxes, and you could throw them out. That's what they call blessing in Babylon. Oh yeah, brethren, this system is horrible. It is horrible. It is really bad. It preys on the weak and the old. It preys on them. Just like a cheetah is looking for the slowest gazelle. It preys on you. There's no doubt. And there's no care. You see, in business, corporations are not people. So corporations have no feelings. All a corporation is looking to do is profit. Profit becomes the whole thing. So if you get hurt while they make their profit, oh, that's just business. And in the world system that you and I are in, there's a balance. What do I mean by that? For somebody to get rich, somebody else has to become poor. For all of the great haves, there's a whole bunch of have-nots. And the way this society programs us is the have-nots are either lazy or stupid. They deserve to be have-nots. That's how they look at it. And there's no feeling. There's no kind of sympathy or at all. Just greed, brethren. That's why we're praising the Most High. I will say it again. I cannot wait until this is over. And I'm so happy. 7 more years, and there will be no more democracies. There will be no more capitalism. There will be no more dollars of exchange. There will be no more sick. There will be no more poor. Greed will not exist. And I'm praising the Most High. All hypocrites will be destroyed. You know what a hypocrite is? That's an unrepentant sinner. Blessed is the man whose transgressions are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom Yahweh will not impute sin, in whose spirit there's no guile. I said, I will acknowledge my transgressions to the Most High. I will confess my sin, and thou hast forgave us the iniquities, my iniquities. For this shall everyone that is godly pray unto thee in the day when thou mayest be found. This is the day he can be found. But there's coming a day where he can't be found. And the deception is so great, even if people want to find him, they can't. The brainwashing is strong. But for those that want truth, you're going to be able to step out on it when he show it to you. But you got to be ready to step on it. Step out on it. You got to be ready to step out on it. Because it's going to go against all the people you know, the whole system you know. It's going to go against all your family. They're going to be all acting like you crazy when you step out on faith for truth. That's the way it is, brother. It's just like that. When you decide you ain't giving no more to pimps, you're not supporting pimps no more. You're not blessed of the Lord. Now the Lord will bless you. See, the one they call Lord is Baal. Baal. B-A-A-L. That's their Lord. Baal. He ain't no God. Father don't acknowledge Baal. He acknowledged him. The Father is this. He is. He said, I swear by myself, because there's none higher. He don't need to swear somebody else's name. He told Abraham, I swear by myself. Because there ain't none higher. There's no other God but him. Praise the Most High. And I have chosen Israel. You are my witnesses, he says. I don't care what people think about it. People always come on me. Well, you know, I'm Jewish too. We believe. I don't care what y'all believe. I don't care what your beliefs of religion is. This is my conviction. And those that receive that are with it. Those not, step. And it's coming down to the point soon. You know, I know they watching me and they're going to arrest me. I ain't worried about it. I don't care. Can this be over soon? Let's get it over. That's all I'm saying. Let's get the show on the road. Get it done with. Because you know what? It's got to end, man. It's got to end. The other day, man, like I said, they put out a sting operation for child predators. And within 2 hours, they had 240 men show up to try to have sex with people they thought was under 15, 14, 20, 10 years old. In only 2 hours. How crazy is that? Brethren, it's got to come to an end, man. The whole thing has to come to an end. It really does. And we praise the Most High for his word that promises us it will end and has shown us it's coming. He has given us his word. He has blessed us with his word so that now he is showing us it's coming to an end. And we praise the Most High. It's going to end soon. Yes, there's going to be some rough times. There's no doubt. There's going to be some rough time. But that's all good. It's all good. It's all good. You know. Deuteronomy chapter 14. Yes. Deuteronomy chapter 14. The health plan of the Most High Yah. Oh, yes, that's right. The souls are being sealed. Right now, all of us are in the process of being sealed. The operation has already begun, brother. I told my wife, I said, we're so used to thinking in the future. This is going to happen. This is coming. But you know what? The future is now. Seriously. The future is now. The sealing has begun. You know, those of us that, and I'm not trying to download over y'all that wasn't there, but I'm saying, those of us that was in Florida a few weeks ago, you felt the spirit moving. I'm not trying to brainwash y'all and tell you what y'all felt, but I'm just saying you could bear witness what was there. That wasn't no accident. That wasn't your imagination. That was real. And you know what? That's showing us it has already started. It's already started, brother. And it's all good. It really is all good. Praise the Most High. It really is. It's already good. Praise the Most High. So we're looking forward. And it's coming. And the Gentiles are not going to like everything I'm saying. And all of the coons among us, and y'all know who I'm talking about, all the coons, they're going to be the first one pointing the finger and helping the Gentiles, you know, like they always do. There's always going to be Judases. Judas is a Hebrew. It's all good, though. At the end of the day, when the Messiah returns and they say, hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. You know what? That is coming. That is coming. Okay? And it's coming soon. Listen, we're talking about 7 years on the outside. 7 years ago, man, it was 2018. That seemed like yesterday. And 7 years going to get here just like that. That's right. That's right, Stephen Kelly. That's right. It tolls for thee. Yes, amen. And see, and so we are trusting the Father's word and his righteousness. We are trusting the word that he has delivered to us in prophetic utterance. We are trusting what he has shown us in his spirit. We are trusting only in him and his word. And it's very simple and it's very powerful and it has nothing to do with anybody outside. They can believe whatever they want. We were moving on the conviction that the Father has put in our hearts. And that's all that matters. Very soon, it's all going down. Okay, it's all good. Okay, but praise the Most High. He's already started sealing us. He's preparing us, brethren. There's a lot of stuff still to happen now, but at the end of the day, the victory's ours. We just got to hang on. The victory's ours. We just got to hang on. Praise the Most High. It really is. And there's nothing nobody could do about it because it's ordained by the Most High. The Most High, the King of the whole thing. Praise the Most High. It's already started. Okay. What we are seeing, brethren, is the events that have already been ordained and called into existence before the earth was. You're seeing them play out right in front of you. And they're going to continue to do that. It's going to continue. Praise the Most High. And we expect it, right? We're not surprised. We know it's coming. Praise the Most High. Now, let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 1. Now, I want to especially look at verse 1 because this is a principle that I think people misunderstand. Verse 1 of Deuteronomy chapter 14. Ye are the children of Yahweh, your Most High. Ye shall not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. No. Why do you think, in your conviction, would he say that? Why would he say, don't cut yourselves or make baldness between your eyes for the dead? Why would he give such an injunction? And and you will know the answer by this. What is the theme that you've been hearing throughout our study of the book of Deuteronomy? What is one of the themes that you've been hearing throughout our study of the book of Deuteronomy? What is the Most High's message through Moses? What are you getting from what Moses is telling our forefathers? What are you getting? What is the message? And that message is tied to verse 1. That's right. Akawan Banya. That's it. And so you write to superstar. Don't worship other gods. So if he's telling you not to do something, you can pretty much understand it has to do with giving some honor to a false god. Does that make sense, y'all? Everybody catching that? So in other words, if he's telling you don't cut yourselves, why? Because people that worship false gods probably do that. If he's telling you don't make baldness between your eyes, why? Because he's telling you that people that worship false gods do that for their dead. If he's telling you trim your beard, don't trim your beard a certain way. Why? It's because other people that worship false gods trim their hair a certain way. That's why. It's not that he's telling all of us to wear a beard. He's telling you, do not follow the styles of those that give honor to their false gods. Like this. Why do we need a Christmas tree? Is there anything wrong with a tree? Anything wrong with pine? What's wrong with a Christmas tree? What's wrong with that? What is wrong with wearing skeletons and going out and asking for candy? Why? Because it's what people that worship a false god do as part of their false god worship. Christmas tree is in honor of Christmas. Christmas is in honor, and they're looking for a god called Santa Claus, right? So we don't want to honor Santa Claus. So we don't have Christmas trees. You see, that's the principle. That's the principle. You got me? So it's not about you must wear a beard or whatever. It's like, don't do things that the pagans do to honor their God, their false gods. They cut themselves. They put tattoos permanent on their skin, right? They wear certain hairstyles that they got from Syro-Phoenicians from centuries ago to honor false gods. Don't do that. That's right. Wear crosses around your neck. For what? False gods. False gods. Why you have a picture of a white Jesus with his heart, with some thorns around his heart? That's for a false god. No, if you're ignorant and you don't know, well, you just don't know. But if you are awakened and you start to understand these things, then you do know, right? And so we're constantly, as we're awakening, the process is learning and unlearning. Like they had me convinced I had to go to church to be saved. Be part of being saved is regular church attendance. Regular church attendance, part of being saved. And it has nothing to do with that. Like nothing, like zero. Like that's man-made. Forsake not the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is. And they equated that to church attendance. Part of the brainwash. So you start to learn and you start to unlearn. You unlearn that. That's not true. That is not true. The Most High never had a congregation of Christianity. Never. Not in his Bible. There's no congregation of Christianity in here. There's no Christian religion in there. It's not there. There's a nation of scattered people that are Hebrews. And the God that scattered them because they worshiped other gods. And he promises, the promise is to bring them back and gather them again. See? So we start learning and we unlearn. We used to all think, man, pork tastes so good. I have fond memories of having bacon and eggs in the morning. I have fond memories of having sausage, smelling my mama cook the sausage. But then you awaken and you realize you learn to eat the unclean foods by your enemies in your enemy's land. You learn to eat the defiled food in your enemy's land. And that's when you awaken and you say, oh, that bacon represents defiled food in your enemy's land. And you dishonor the Father. That's why he said, you dishonored me among the heathen, whither ye went. That's what it is. Also remember, brethren, they're trying to destroy us. They're trying to destroy our families. They're trying to separate us from our God. They're trying to kill us with things they call food that are not. You understand? That's what they're trying to do. And when you have that knowledge, now you start to see the truth. You say, oh, so what's the Father trying to do? He's trying to keep us from being bamboozled. He's trying to keep us from being hoodwinked. He's trying to bring us back to health. He's trying to bring us back from being deceived. And he's trying to open our eyes to the truth. See? And so that's, again, you learn and you unlearn. And it's a continual process in Babylon, because it's where we all were born and raised, in Babylon. In our generation, brethren, we've been born and raised in the system established to destroy us. We just didn't know it. Our family, our fathers didn't know it. Our daddies, our mamas didn't know it. We've been born and raised in a system designed for our destruction. Seriously, it is not designed for you to prosper. I don't care what anybody tells you. We should all have black businesses. Anybody can. No, that's not true. The system was designed for your destruction. It was not designed for you to prosper. You understand? It is not designed for you to prosper. The Most High causes you to get what you need in spite of their designs. That's the miracle, brother. When you get your stuff, when you get a house, when you're able to pay your bills, when you're able to take care of your business, that's in spite of the forces against you. That's the Father blessing you in spite of the forces aligned to destroy you. If two parents are staying with their children and they're continually loving each other, that's designed to not happen. And when you are having it happen, it's against what they want for you. They would love for the families to be destroyed. They love for the men to get discouraged and walk away. They want for us to be in their prison system. They want for us to have records and we can't vote. They want us to be begging at their knees. They want that. And when we praise the Most High because we don't have to do that, yes, it's because in spite of what they designed for us, the Most High overrules it in spite of what they designed for us. Praise the Most High. Okay, verse 2. Verse 2 drives the heathen mad. When we quote verse 2, they get upset and start asking all kind of heathen questions like, what about us? What about you? Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 2. For thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy Most High, and Yahweh has chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. Stop, wait. Did I say that? Or did it say right here in the word in black and white? See, what happens now is they start to try to justify themselves. Well, it really wasn't black. It was olive skin. No, it's really not, you guys. It was really, really Europe is the place of the Israelites. They try to justify their falsehoods. And they drop names, Christian is in the Bible. They try to justify their existence. This is the problem they have, though. When we read the word of the Father, what he doesn't mention, he doesn't acknowledge. You see, the Most High knows each of us by name and has his own name for us. The word tells us that, right? He knows each of us by name. So when he doesn't acknowledge you, he don't know you. There is no Baptist church in the Bible. There is no Mormon church in the Bible. There is no SDA church in the Bible. There's no Jehovah's Witnesses church in the Bible. He doesn't acknowledge them. Therefore, in his sight, they don't even exist. See, and the heathen hate that thought that the Heavenly Father, the Creator, doesn't even acknowledge your existence. He only acknowledged what he just said here. Thou, the holy people, the Hebrews of the bloodline. See, that's why you're going to get a lot of fight from people and argument. You're not really Hebrew. Don't argue with them. We're not basing our faith on winning an argument with unbelievers. Let me say that again. We do not base our faith on winning an argument with unbelievers. Our faith is based on the word we receive from the Father and our conviction. Never argue with anybody on something you're convicted about. If they tell you we're convicted of the opposite, then you just go with that. Say, okay, that's your conviction. Do you, boo? And they hate that because they want you to argue with them. See, if Eve would have just walked away from the tree, just walked away, that would have frustrated the devil to no end, because now she's not even engaging in conversation with him. She gone, but he got her to engage. That's what all the devils want you to do. The devils want you to engage. I was listening to Diggable Planets the other day. I like this one song where the sister go, I'm 68 inches above sea level, but 93 million miles above these devils. And if you know. And brethren, the devils are always trying to get you in an argument, always trying to draw you into a fight. Don't. When you are convicted in your spirit by the Father Yah's spirit, and you are convicted on truth, hold on to it. Hold on to your conviction. Don't waste your time and your energy. You're not trying to win. You will never win a person to the truth by beating them in a debate. Debate, even of itself, is an exercise in pride. That's what it is. So if you can feed their pride or you can feed yours, nobody's being won to truth, right? Praise the Most High. So don't argue with nobody about your conviction. You understand? Don't argue with nobody about your conviction. Don't do it. Stick with the Father. The devil's always going to try to bring his imps to try to get you to argue with him. As long as you got the word, you got the word. You got the word. Praise the Most High. Yeah, 93 million miles above these devils. That's right. And that was bad because they estimate the sun is 93 million miles above the earth. So as the sun is above the earth, we have the light of the Father above all the devils. Praise the Most High. Amen. Amen. So now, at this point, he says, thou shalt not eat any abominable thing. So now, his word says, because you are a chosen people above all people of the earth, because you are, I have a diet that I want you to partake in. And this diet will show the earth that you belong to me, right? The Father, you belong to him. When you follow his diet plan, you belong to him. So you're a holy people. You're set apart. And so he says, I don't want you just eating anything if you're set apart. Now, before we close this part of the session here, I want to say this. So the devil will change his game in order to try to destroy us. So what does he do? He creates things that he calls us to call food. And not only are they not food, they're made to destroy us. They're made to raise your blood pressure, made to raise your blood sugar, to make your body unclean, to add fat to your body, to make the heart work harder, to make your liver go bad, to make your kidneys go bad. These things that they call food, right? They're really stuff that they call edible. And so you're able to put them in your mouth, chew them, and swallow them, but they're not really food. Food feeds you by nature, right? Food feeds your body. The devil has created things he calls food that are not really feeding you, but are draining your body to kill you. So he says, I have a diet plan. I want you to follow this diet plan. If you stick with it, I'm going to bless you. That's what he said. I'm going to bless you if you stick with it. Right? Food nourishes your body. But there are things that are available to eat that taste good, designed to appeal to what your taste buds like. But they drain you of nourishment, drain you of nutrients, drain you of vitamins, drain you of strength, cause you to get older quicker and to lose your vitality. They're made for that. It's made for that. And they want you to get hooked on it. When they first came out with crack, when the government first came out with crack, people used to give it away. Oh, yeah, they give it away. They give it to little girls. Because then within a few weeks, they could have that little girl and anything else that she could steal. Same with boys. They give it to you because you hooked on it. Once they got you hooked, that's it. They give it to you. Okay? And the same with drugs. My wife and I just saw a movie the other day based on oxycodone, I think it's called oxycodone, and how that got started. Somebody would get in an accident and then they'd be in pain and the doctor would prescribe oxycodone and they got hooked on the drug. So when their pain was over, they would still come back to the doctor and say, I'm still feeling pain from that accident. Doctor, okay, let me prescribe more. And the doctor would make money selling it and they would get hooked on it by using it for their pain. And that's how you got basically your whole opioid crisis came out of doctors' offices when you think about it, because they prescribe these things for you. And then people will break into hospitals. They'll break into other people's houses for the purpose of finding that in your medicine cabinet and getting it, or something they could sell to get it. And they showed the true stories of people who lost their lives, whose lives they got in an accident, and then they got prescribed these prescriptive medications, and they were hooked on it, and they kept coming back. They showed a little girl had broke her leg and would come into the doctor's office well after her leg was healed on crutches to show him, I'm in pain, I need some more. Found her dead in her daddy's front yard. So that's how this thing started. It started with us trusting people that wanted to profit off us and kill us. Okay? Profit off us and kill us. That's how it is. That's the real. I'm praising the Most High that one day soon, brethren, there'll be no more oxycodone. There'll be no more pharmaceuticals that we need to be using because there'll be no more pain. There'll be no more doctors because we got the king doctor. Father Yah has set it up that Messiah is the king of all doctors. We don't need to worry about that. He will take care of us. There'll be no need to alter your mind with chemicals. It won't exist. Neither will the author of that. Satan himself will be destroyed. There'll be no more. We praise the Most High. But as long as it's not like that, unfortunately, these ugly things will continue. But we have to awaken and understand this is the game, brethren. This is the game. It's a game that's rigged against you. It's a game that's rigged against you. You need to take it personal. What I mean by that, don't just think it's normal. It's not. You know, the heathen always try to act like, y'all think you're different. Did I say we was different? Let me see. Oh, I think the Father Yah said, for thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy Most High. Yahweh hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. So yeah, we are different. We're different, brethren. Don't forget that. We are different. We're not like everybody else. Yeah, we bleed red. Yeah, we put our pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. We squat over the toilet like everybody else. But we are different. The Father said it. We didn't say that. He said he has chosen us. We're not like everybody else. Remember that. The heathen don't know that. And if they do, they don't want to know it. And that's all good. But we're not like them. We're not like everybody else. You are different. You should tell your children that. You are different. You're not like everybody else. The Father said that. You are different. Okay? Remember that. And remember, everything they're doing, even if they mean well, remember, it's designed for your destruction. And you have to ask your Father, how do I avoid this trap they're trying to set me in? I get it every time. My wife mentioned, man, because I was just saying, my doctor's in Virginia. I've been using this doctor for more than 10 years. So I went to a doctor down here at the recommendation of my lovely bride. And that quack was trying all kind of tricks to get me to get more tests because my insurance would cover it, and then talk about I could hook you up with some, I could prescribe drug. And I said, no, I don't need none of that. Well, he touches my heart. I don't know. Sound funny. I said, I am never going back there. Ever. Then he called me up on the phone and charged me $96 for a 10-minute call that wasted my time. And I was like, nah, man. And you ain't never seeing me again. What do you think about doctor? I said, tell him to go to hell. I ain't want to talk to him. I ain't seeing that quack no more. Don't even have him call me. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Don't let me perceive your ripoff, because then, you know, I don't act right. I don't act right. You know, and there's always a ripoff. There's always something, brethren. You know, I don't handle it well. Pray for me. Nah. No doubt about it, Castle King. What do you think about Dr. Sosa? I think he's a quack. I don't ever want to see him again. Don't have him call me no more. Charge me $96 for a 10-minute phone call. What the hell's wrong with y'all? I said, no. Well, you know, it might be something serious. Then I'll just die then. That's what I said. I said, then I'll just die then. I ain't worried about that. I just die then. You're right, Akawamba. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, when you start to see the ripoff, you want to avoid it. You know, avoid the ripoff, man. They're always trying to run game. I haven't been in that fool office 10 minutes. I don't know. We might need more tests. How old are you? Oh, now his nurse came in before him. Nurse said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 63. She said, you're in great shape. I said, yeah, I take care of myself. And she did my heart and did all this shit. Everything looking good. I said, okay. She said, doctor, I'll see you in a minute. Fool comes in. How old are you? Oh, man, you need to have this test and that test when you that age. I said, for what? They said, we could catch it. Catch what? You know, if something's wrong. Well, I don't worry about it. If something's wrong, then I'll just die then. I ain't worry about it. And I told him, I said, let me just, nothing personal. I don't trust no doctors. Y'all just, I told him, I said, y'all are just in business to prescribe drugs and tests for you to get money. I said, I don't need none of that. He said, well, we might find what you might find. I don't know. It could be anything. You can have a heart murmur. I said, then I just die of a heart attack then. I ain't worried about it. I'm good. And he just kept going, man. I was like, bro, stop. Like a daggone stockbroker trying to pitch me a penny stock. You know, I was like, no, stop it, man. I don't need no more tests. Oh, I definitely want to see you next year. I said, I tell you what. Okay. Okay. And I left. And I told the lady, said, Dr. So-so. I said, I ain't seeing him no more. I ain't seen him no more. She said, he wants you to come back. I don't care. That's when she said, he need to call you. And I said, all right, he could call me because I could let him down again over the phone. Then I got a bill. I said, what is this $96? They said, that's the phone call. I said, what? He said he had an appointment by phone. I said, that what would you call it? For him to beg me to come get him 2 more tests and then come see him again for more fees? I'm good. Then he was pushing, brethren. I said, I'll tell you what, let me call you at the beginning of the year. He said, all right. I said, yeah, January, I'll call you. Yeah, get at Oh, man, brethren. It was something. He was pushing, man. Like I said, he was being pushy. You get too pushy. Now you just expose yourself, man. You got too pushy. Yo, Castle King, he ain't joking, man. For real, for real. So I ain't seeing that fool again. Yeah. I'll go see my man in Virginia when I go see my babies. I'll go up there and see him. And he know me because he tried that mess with me before, you know. When I turned 40 or something, it's like he said, well, we got to do this test, you know. I said, for what? He said, you know, we could find something, then we could cut it out. I said, wait, what? The first thing I said, you ain't cutting me for nothing, and you ain't finding nothing. He said, well, we do test. We ain't doing a test. No, I don't want YouTube to ding me when I tell you what kind of test it is, because then somebody might say, well, I'm preaching, man. I'm not. He said, we got to do this test. You're over 40. I said, no, you ain't doing that. You ain't digging in my behind. I'm sorry. No. He said, well, we need to find. If we find, I said, if I just die from it, then I just die from it. I'm good. I ain't worried about that. I said, nah, bro. Nope. Then he said, you could put it in the back. I said, you want me to dig in the toilet with it? I said, no, man. My wife said, you should do it. I said, hell no. That's nasty. I ain't put my hand on no dung. Oh, my God. We'll give you the box and everything. Some things are for some people. Some things are not. Really? I'm sorry. If I get it, I just get it. If I don't, I don't. I try my best to take care of myself, you know, but I am. I'm not bending over for that. I'm sorry. Not me. You done asked the wrong Hebrew. You done asked the wrong Hebrew. So that's that. That's that. That's that, man. That's that. So yeah, they always trying to kill us, y'all. Brethren, they always trying to kill us. And drain us of our money. Always. I'll keep mine in my pocket as long as I can, I'll keep it there as long as I can keep it. I know it's got to leave eventually, but, as long as I can keep it in my pocket, I'm going to keep it. as long as I can hang on to it, I'm going to hang on to it. Man, shoot. I try my best, I look up natural remedies and all that and do my best, try to follow the commandments of the Father that he showed us in the health change he got for us. Yes, exactly. Still got it in my pocket. I'm good then. I feel better about that than giving it to some daggone quack. I tell you that. Anyway, we're going to have to continue this after our break. We're already over time. I'm sorry, y'all, for keeping y'all so late. But we're going to come back to chapter 14, the part 2, the health plan, along with the tithing. We went through the tithing, so y'all already prepared for that as we come back into chapter 14. But yeah, praise the Most High. So I'm just, I never try to keep y'all more than an hour because, I don't want to, take up all your day and then, and then lose your attention and all that. So, So anyway, I apologize for that. But we did cover an important topic, which was tithing. We needed to really talk about that. And the chapter 14 is going to bring it out even more. Praise the Most High. And of course, there's the food aspect, which we're going to discuss when we return in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, an hour, something like that. We'll return, come back to this chapter 14. We'll get right into it by the grace of the Father. Yeah. Until then, may the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, family.